Breaking news! Something big has happened in Miami. A shocking trade, unexpected names on the move, and a fan base that now has more questions than answers. The Dolphins are clearly trying to quickly rebuild their roster, but is it for a real Super Bowl run or just another one of Greer's smokescreens to buy more time? The locker room is heating up, frustrations are starting to boil over, and the front office is scrambling to prove they're not lying. What's really going on behind the scenes? Why are Pro Bowlers being let go while old names from the past are suddenly returning? I'll tell you everything I know, but before we get started, please like this if you followed the Dolphins through thick and thin. And if you've been a fan for over 2 decades, leave a comment below. Go Dolphins! My heart bleeds teal and orange. Now, let me tell you what's really going on in South Florida. Let's get right to it. The Miami Dolphins have pulled off a blockbuster trade. Jaylen Ramsay, Jonnu Smith, and a 2027 7th-round pick are headed to the Pittsburgh Steelers. In return, the Dolphins are getting a familiar face, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Yes, you heard that right. Fitzpatrick is coming back to Miami. The same safety we drafted, the one who left during the turbulent Brian Flores era, is now back in the building. Alongside Minkah, Miami is also receiving a 2027 5th-round pick. This move is already shaking up the roster in major ways, especially in the safety room. And here's the thing, this trade wasn't just about bringing Fitzpatrick home. It was a clear message. This team is not tanking. You don't trade for an all-pro safety like Fitzpatrick if you're trying to rebuild. You do it if you think you're one piece away from being a legit Super Bowl contender. Now, I know there's been talk on social media, with rumors that Pittsburgh didn't even want Ramsay. Some fans are buying into that noise, but don't believe everything you read online. The fact is, the Dolphins pulled the trigger on a deal that suddenly strengthens what was a shaky secondary. Minkah Fitzpatrick, still just 28 years old, is locked in for the next 2 years with a $15 million hit this season and $17 million next year. That might sound hefty, but after offloading Ramsay, Miami is still sitting on around $22 million in cap space. They have flexibility, and that opens the door to even more moves. And speaking of reactions, Raheem Mostert didn't hold back. After news broke, he tweeted, "Hot take, being a Pro Bowler on the Dolphins gets treated like bleep. Happy for my guy though. Go ball out." That's coming from a player who just weeks ago was on the Fish Tank podcast praising the organization. Now he's publicly venting frustration. There's tension in the locker room, and fans need to pay attention. When players like Mostert start speaking out like this, it means something is bubbling under the surface. What's also worth noting is that the Dolphins were reportedly trying to work something out with Jonnu Smith. The plan was to keep him around, but ultimately Pittsburgh's need, especially with their tight end injuries and their OC's familiarity with Jonnu, pushed the deal through. It stings, because Smith brought a lot to this offense. But now the focus shifts. And here's where it gets even wilder. Tom Pelissero is reporting that the Dolphins are actively talking to multiple teams about acquiring another tight end. So, don't think this trade was the end of Miami's movement. No, they're just getting started. Names like Michael Mayer from the Raiders and Kyle Pitts from the Falcons have already started circulating. If Miami lands one of those guys, it's going to shift the entire offensive dynamic. Let's also talk about the defense now. With Minkah in the fold, the Dolphins' safety unit goes from questionable to one of the strongest in the league. Before this trade, the team was relying on Fatu Melifonwu, who has talent but has struggled with injuries, and Ashton Davis, who's been inconsistent at best. Now, with Fitzpatrick back, that group looks solid. Fans have been clamoring for more help in the secondary, and this is a huge step forward. And if the Dolphins can still add a legit corner, someone like Rasul Douglas or Stephon Gilmore, then suddenly we're talking about a top-tier defensive backfield. Training camp is just around the corner. Rookies report on July 15th, veterans on July 22nd, and practices begin on the 23rd. With all this in motion, the Dolphins aren't just tweaking, they're preparing for a deep run. They're addressing major needs at the right time, and that includes depth on the offensive line. We've seen how disastrous things can get when that unit isn't prepared. Just think back to that Texans game where our backup tackle got exposed. Miami brought in Jonah Williams, James Daniels, and they like what they've seen from Patrick Paul and Austin Jackson, but they still need more depth, more insurance. This team has enough talent to win, but it's going to come down to whether the front office finishes the job. They're not done yet, and they better not be, because if they really want to compete in the AFC, there's no margin for error. Because if you ask me, this trade has completely shifted the tone around this team. There was a growing concern that the Dolphins were slipping into mediocrity again, especially after the inconsistencies late last season and the frustrating lack of playoff success. But now, with Minkah Fitzpatrick back in the mix, the defense finally has a veteran presence in the secondary who can read offenses, make game-changing plays, and elevate the performance of everyone around him. This is no small addition. This is the kind of move you make when you believe you're right on the cusp of something big. But that doesn't mean we should suddenly start giving Grier a free pass. Let's be real, this guy has made plenty of questionable decisions, and the only reason he's still around is probably politics inside the front office. If this team does make a Super Bowl run, it'll be because of the players and the coaching staff grinding it out, not because Grier finally learned how to build a roster. And fans know this. We've been here too many times before, watching splashy offseason moves lead to disappointment. So yes, while adding Minkah is a big-time upgrade, the pressure is still on to finish building this roster the right way. And that brings us to what's next. The Dolphins are clearly not done. They've got cap space and they're in active conversations with other teams. The tight end market is heating up, and this could get even crazier in the coming days. If they land a guy like Kyle Pitts, who's an athletic mismatch nightmare, or even Michael Mayer, who brings size and blocking ability, it's going to completely change the way defenses have to game plan for Miami. Imagine Pitts lined up with Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, and a healthy Raheem Mostert out of the backfield. That's speed and versatility at every level. But while the offense could reach another level, the defense still needs one more piece at cornerback. This isn't optional, it's necessary. Ramsay is gone. That leaves a whole opposite Xavier Howard, and while there's potential in the young guys, the Dolphins cannot afford to gamble on development at this point. Not when the AFC is stacked with elite quarterbacks and explosive offenses. Rasul Douglas is still on the radar. So is Stephon Gilmore. There have even been rumblings about Asante Samuel Jr. These are the names that could push this defense from good to elite. Then there's the offensive line, a unit that's seen upgrades but still lacks reliable depth. Injuries can derail a season in a flash, and Dolphins fans know this too well. Jonah Williams and James Daniels are solid additions. Austin Jackson has improved. Aaron Brewer had a breakout year. But who's the next man up if one of them goes down? That's what separates playoff teams from true contenders, the ability to weather the storm. They've got to sign someone with starting experience who can be a plug-and-play option if needed. And let's not ignore the quarterback situation. That's still the elephant in the room. The Dolphins are built to win now, but the quarterback position remains fragile. Whether it's durability concerns, inconsistency, or the lack of a proven backup, it's a situation that could easily spiral out of control. If they don't address it with a serious plan, whether it's a trade, a signing, or some kind of contingency, then all these upgrades might be wasted if disaster strikes. This is the moment where Miami can either cement themselves as a top AFC threat or fall back into the same cycle of almost but not quite. The decisions made over the next few weeks will define this team's 2025 season. There's no room for conservative, safe moves. The fans deserve a championship-caliber team, and for the first time in years, the roster is close. But close isn't good enough. It's about finishing the job. So now it's your turn. What's the next move Miami needs to make? Is it tight end? Is it cornerback? Do they have to go all in on quarterback depth? Hit that like button if you're fired up about what this team is building. Subscribe so you don't miss the next big update. And keep your eyes on the screen. There's another video on deck with a deep dive into the camp battles and who's on the bubble. Click it now and let's keep this conversation going. Go Dolphins!